All right, good afternoon, everyone. Kevin Guthrie, Director of Emergency Services. Today I'm joined by Captain Tate Sanborn of the Pasco County Sheriff's Office and Jared Hill, who is the Emergency Management Liaison for the Pasco Sheriff's Office as well. So this is going to be a very quick press conference. This year we've had a very active fire season in Pasco County. And there's no relief in sight. We have no large amount of rain in the forecast in the very near future. However, we had an active weekend of fires, as we've had over the last several weekends. But one thing that we wanted to point out to you all and ask for your assistance in helping us get the message out is illegal burns. We've had a burn ban that went into effect on May the 12th at 10:30. Since May the 12th at 10:30 a.m., we have had 410, that's 410, 410 illegal burns or outside burns in Pasco County since that burn ban has gone into effect. The ordinance does allow the Pasco County Sheriff's Office and the Pasco County Fire Rescue Department to enforce that burn ban. So we will be partnering with the Sheriff's Office, and they are doing some preparation for issuing of burn citations. I'll let Captain Tate Sanborn talk a little bit more about that, and then I will come back and do a follow-up with the weekend burns. So, Captain Sanborn.
Thank you, Kevin. So what folks need to understand is that the Pasco Sheriff's deputies will be actively dispatching with Pasco Fire Rescue personnel. We're going to actively enforce the burn ban ordinance. It is punishable by up to a $500 fine and 60 days in jail. We also want the public to know that we're going to be cracking down on acts of carelessness, right? Not all fires are intentionally set, we know that, but things like flicking lit cigarettes out of the window of cars and things like that will be met with the full penalties of the law from this point going forward until we start to see some more rain. We also want to make sure that the public understands that if they see any fires of any kind, whether they believe it to be a backyard burn or a potential wildfire, that they call 911 immediately so the proper authorities can be dispatched and address that fire as soon as possible. Kevin, thank you.
All right, so with regards to the burns that we had this weekend, I'm sure people have questions on that. The one burn that we had as a result of the Paul Recycling plant that was on Gladstone Drive, that continues to remain at 40 acres. To the best of my knowledge, we were going to have a Florida Forest Service representative with us today, but I believe they've been called away. It's 40 acres and 90% containment, and they are going to be working those lines to improve those lines and make sure they check for hot spots throughout the week. So that concludes our formal portion of the press conference. You can get a hold of the press releases for the burn ban at www.pascocountyfl.net after this press conference, but I'll entertain as well, Captain Sanborn will entertain any questions that you may have at this time.
Captain, for the 410 illegal burns, I mean, what are we talking about there? I mean, that's a lot. How do you even keep track of that many, and what kind of burns were people doing?
So again, fire rescue is primarily dispatched to those, so I'll speak just a tiny bit in their lane, unless we want to introduce.
Yes. Sure.
All right, so I'd like to introduce Chief Whited to answer that question, if you don't mind.
All right, so we've had 410 illegal burns. What sort of the type of those burns?
Most of them are yard burning, people burning trash in their yard, still yard debris and stuff like that, stuff that they're not supposed to be burning at this time. People just still want to keep burning.
And Chief, how frustrating is it? We've been hearing about this for a month at least now, about don't burn. The wind, the dry conditions are terrible. How frustrating is it to you when you have to give out 410 warnings or citations or whatever it's been?
Well, I think it's very frustrating. It's frustrating that we have to actually give those citations and those warnings, and it's, we don't want to have to enforce that by giving those fines. But we also don't want to have incidents like we had yesterday, and yesterday was a perfect example of it. I mean, that's not our first fire from some illegal burning. We've had many of those throughout the last couple of months. But those rules are in place so we don't have breakout fires like that.
Chief, what is the suspected cause of yesterday's fire?
Yesterday was a spot over from mulch recycling. That was probably more of spontaneous combustion from just the compacted materials heating up and spotting over.
Has there any progress been made on any of the arson investigations? For instance, last time we were here, we talked about the one near Seven Springs that forced the evacuation of the elementary school. Is there any update on that?
It's an open investigation, so they're still actively pursuing those leads. I know over the weekend our arson investigators were back out there in that area following up on some things. So it takes some time. I mean, it's just like any other criminal cases. They got to make sure that they build a good case. So if they can bring charges, that those charges are solid.
Is there any reason to suspect arson in any of the other wildfires that have occurred here?
Off the top of my head, I can't think of any. Right off the top of my head, most of them we have a point of origin and a definitive cause. Some of the fires are labeled as incendiary by the Florida Forest Service, meaning that it could have just been someone, a careless smoker. And that's still incendiary in nature. So they're not all arson, not intentionally set. So the ones that have been intentionally set, we think we've got a handle on those, and they're being investigated.
Have any citations actually been issued out of the 410? Do we know?
Yeah, I don't have a number, but yes, I do know that our fire marshal's office has issued citations for some open burnings. I could get the numbers for you, though.
Now, I know yesterday there was some talk with the looking into the manufacturing facility's responsibility for the fire yesterday. Are there going to be any citations issued to them?
That's ongoing, but I know yesterday talking with some of the Florida Forest Service supervisors that they are going to be looking at that and some reimbursement from their avenues. Yeah. Brian?
Sure.
Hi there. Again, I'm Brian Prill. I'm the Forest Area Supervisor for Pasco and West Hernando counties with the Florida Forest Service. And in response to your question, our agency will bill suppression cost if it is determined that a fire was caused by an individual, either carelessly, maliciously, regardless if it's not lightning or something. If we know whom is responsible for that ignition, regardless of how, they will be billed suppression. So that bill starts at $150 when the first one of our tractor plow units is unloaded, and then it has an hourly rate from there on up to including personnel. It also goes up with aircraft, etc. Every resource that is there, from the personnel boots on the ground to equipment, is billable.
Do you have a rough estimate on how many acres have burned as a result of this illegal burning, by any chance?
I don't.
Not sure.
No, not total. I do know in April of 2016, we ran 16 fires. Currently, we have 54 for April. So giving you an indicator of how dry it is and how serious we are. And we have 19 ongoing right now that we're constantly trying to work, which is taxing resources quite a bit. So we're still with them. We will stay with them until there are no smokes at all and no heat found for several days before we declare them out, and they don't have to be revisited.
Those 54 fires over in Pasco, is that what we're talking about?
That's in the Withlacoochee district, which encompasses Hernando, Pasco, Citrus, Sumter, and Lake counties.
Considering all these, is it kind of amazing? Are we lucky that homes and even lives haven't been lost in all this?
Yes, it is. That's because we do our job and do it well. That's our priorities. Working with great cooperators like Pasco County, we do our best to handle our business. But lightning is yet to come. You know, the one thing about the fires we're having now is we're able to access them because however they were started generally is accessible. Lightning really doesn't care where it hits. Sometimes it hits on a lone tree way out in the marsh. We don't have resources that float, so we have to wait on the fire to come to us before we can even begin to tackle it. So I will warn you, it'll get worse before it gets better. When the first thunderstorms start coming, we'll be right back at it, hot and heavy again.
We keep hearing, oh, we need rain, we need rain. Would, how much rain would solve the problem? I mean,
I'm sure Mr. Guthrie doesn't want to hear it, but another tropical storm Debbie would be pretty sporty right now. Maybe half of that would come in handy.
we need a lot of rain.
Yes, we are. Yesterday on the Gladstone fire, just to give you an idea, we were able to run pickup trucks and all kinds of things through the south branch of the Anclote River, which, to the best of my knowledge, we haven't done that since maybe, I think, 2001. I don't even think that we could accomplish that in April of 1998, which is what folks are, comparing things to. But in April of 1998, there was still water in ponds. The cypress domes out in the forest still held water. Right now, there is none. So we are far worse now than we were this time then.
And Captain, you mentioned that that people can be fined for carelessness. What would the penalty be? I should say. What would the penalty be for people for flicking a cigarette out the window, for example, and starting a fire?
So the county ordinance allows, like I said, $500 fine and 60 days. The flicking a cigarette out the window falls more under the state statute, and then it becomes a littering charge. And so the criminal charge, the state statute charge, is not significant. However, the reimbursement costs that would then be sought from fire rescue could get up into, or forestry could get up into the tens and $50,000 range. So the goal here is for people to not do it, as opposed to roll the dice and take their chances on, I can probably get by with $100 or whatever. I'll still take the chance. So we're just asking people to be exceptionally cautious at this time, just because it is so dry.
So again, just recapping, to Brian Prill's point, there's been 54 fires in the Withlacoochee district. I do not know the exact number that we've had here specifically in Pasco County, but to the point, the real speaking point of this press conference is since May the 12th at 10:30, we've had 410 burns that Pasco County Fire Rescue has had to respond to since May the 12th. That's taxing on our fire department. It's taxing on the resources. So we're begging people to comply with the burn ban, and and that we will, while the officers have discretion whether or not to issue a warning on the first time or whatever, we are leaning now into an aggressive enforcement mode, which will be carried out at the fire department's request by the Pasco County Sheriff's Office. I'm sorry. It is. Thank you. It is April 12th that burn ban went into effect. So between April 12th and as of 8 o'clock this morning, it was 410 types of burns that have happened that Pasco Fire Rescue has responded to.
Chief, most of these illegal burns, when your guys go out there, are people playing dumb? They don't know. Are there any people that are like?
No, I mean.
They don't care.
Obviously, the common answer is, oh, I didn't know there was a burn ban. So we put the fire out for them, or have them put the fire out, and then we go about our merry way. So we haven't had any incidents like they've had in Polk County, where they had a gentleman threatened a fire crew over there with a handgun. So we haven't had any incidents like that, knock on wood. So we've been pretty lucky over here. And, we give people the benefit of the doubt. If they tell us they didn't know about the burn ban, okay, well, it was a burn ban. And then we ask them to put their fire out and not to burn again. Now, we, obviously our communication center keeps track of all those calls, so we can see. A lot of times they'll put into the notes of our call in the screen of the trucks how many times we've been there for illegal burning prior. So if we've been out there prior during this burn ban, and they say, "Oh, I didn't know," then we'll call our enforcement people out. They'll take care of a citation for them.
I'm going to add just one thing to that. That is a common situation that we run into, is ignorance. Of course, Florida state statute says ignorance of the law is not an excuse. However, we do know that I'll be reaching out to Doug Tobin and coming up with a potential communication strategy that may include some variable message boards, both at the state level as well as perhaps at the local level if the sheriff's office has got anything to spare. But we're looking at how can we more effectively put out this message other than social media, other than mass media. And we are looking at, I want to look at a potential strategy of where we put that out on some variable message boards on some of our main arterial roadways, 54, 52, 19, 301, perhaps work with the state on the 75 and 589 signboards to say there is a burn ban in effect for Pasco County. So we're trying to get the message out there as much as we possibly can. And that's going to require some work on our part. But to that end, we have seen a tremendous uptick in these type of calls, especially over the last 20 some odd days. Any other questions? Okay, I appreciate your time, and We will not have any other types of follow-ups on this particular thing or on this particular set of fires. I think we're good on the Gladstone fire. So, and I will say this, Brian, I did speak for you. We're still at 40 acres and 90% containment on that one.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. All right. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate you. As I always say, and I hope you do take it to heart, we cannot get our message out without you. So I appreciate each and every one of you coming out and being a part of this. Thanks again. All right.